The time is 12 noon. If you'll please give your attention to the emergency evacuation procedures.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
The commission will come to order. Please register your presence by voting yes. It's a little too quick there. Commissioner Lewis, if you'll vote your presence.
Okay, you have 19 present and 2 absent. You have a quorum.
19 present, 2 absent. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the call of the meeting.
Call for a special meeting of the Blount County Board of Commissioners to be held at the Blount County Courthouse in Maryville, Tennessee on Thursday, April 3rd, 2014 at 12 noon. Pursuant to and in accordance with the authority vested in me by Tennessee Code Annotated Section 5-5-105, I hereby call the Board of County Commissioners of Blount County, Tennessee to meet in special session on the 3rd day of April 2014 at 12 noon at room 430 of the Blount County Courthouse in Maryville, Tennessee to consider and act upon the following. 1. Resolution authorizing the creation of an adventure tourism district within Blount County, Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, the chair will recognize anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment or give input on this matter. If you'll please come to the podium.
Thank you. I'm Linda King with Citizens for Blount County's Future. Most of you brag about being generational Blount Countyans, yet to support or vote for this tourism resolution will bring about the destruction of the peaceful side of the Smokies. Is that what you want for Blount County? Is our community so overcome by the greed for money that you'll sacrifice the peace and quiet that the folks in Townsend and Wallen so love for the wishes of the Chamber and Tourist Board? We now have mom and pop businesses throughout Townsend that attract people who purchase works of art, handcrafted by local citizens. This resolution is not for their benefit as stated, with the sham of providing tax breaks. Only 3 in 150 of them qualify. It's to encourage big financially backed tourist organizations, hotels and restaurants to locate in the area, and it will ultimately put these unique shops out of business. We'll see stores that cater to travelers charging 3 times more than what should be for their services. And instead of selling handmade crafts, they'll stuff their shelves with souvenirs made in China. Do you want to see another Pigeon Forge develop at our front door? Once you open that door, it can't be closed. We will no longer be able to advertise as the peaceful side of the Smokies. Blount Partnership became aware of the April 15th deadline to submit applications to the state on February 27th. It's been stated that they had been working with Commissioner Wright. Therefore, there's no good reason that this should not have been put on your March agenda so the community could have had full input instead of sneaking through a resolution on a weekday at noon. I hope you'll give this resolution careful consideration and remember the folks who were forced from Cades Cove and built their homes in Wallen and Townsend to be near their family homestead. Would you want your sanctity ruined by big businesses who are only interested in profit, not lifestyle? For a change, join the naysayers and do what's right for your citizens. Sure, tourism brings in money. It also brings in congestion, traffic, noise, and pollution. How proud will you be of your legacy when you've built another Pigeon Forge where paradise used to be? Take the time to read Psalms 10 in the Bible about the lust for money. Thank you.
I'm Carol Ross. I come from District 1. The Daily Times quoted the partnership president as saying, "This legislation is to help rural Tennessee, specifically small business, mom and pop establishments." In the business plan, however, only 3 businesses qualify for the tax incentives. This looks like a bill to give tax breaks only to large businesses, with mom and pops falling by the wayside. So who really benefits from this? The state regulations imply that if a district were created over vacant space, then the county or city could only allow qualifying adventure tourism businesses to locate there or risk forfeiting the tax incentives altogether. The partnership president said the district does not affect zoning laws. However, this regulation implies that the landowner can only use the land for adventure tourism activities, and this is a type of zoning. It's also a restrictive zoning. Questions that should be asked about this is, were the landowners notified of this possible zoning change, and were they educated and informed of the implication that this district brings? What happens if a landowner wants to build something else other than an adventure tourism activity? They can't do it. Even if they want to build a home for their families, could they do that? Can the county say no to an activity that's on the list of adventure tourism activities? The plan puts no restrictions on what can be done, except that the partnership does not want to build new infrastructure. It has been said, a man has 2 reasons for everything he does, the good one and the real one. What is the real reason for this district request? I'm asking that you give a no vote on this legislation, on this resolution, until you find the answers and resolve the conflicts that exist. Thank you.
My name is Marion Fitzgerald. I live at Havenwood Drive in Maryville. The April 15th deadline for creating this adventure tourism district, as I understand it, is an annual deadline. I would like to ask why this commission, or some people, seem to be in such a hurry to jump into this without proper study and consideration and involving the public and thinking about what we're doing before we create this thing. Wouldn't it be better to wait until next April and have a whole year to consider the full implications of what this might mean for our county, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and what the advantages and disadvantages really are? I would urge you to think about waiting and making a better decision than you can make on the spur of the moment. And I hope that when you do make the decision about this, that you'll consider what the people of Blount County have been telling you for decades about how they would like to retain the natural beauty and the rural character of our county. Thank you.
The motion is to adopt Resolution 1404A-001. Commissioner Folks, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions on this whole thing.
State your question, sir.
Can anyone tell me why this last-minute rush with little opportunity for public scrutiny? Can anyone answer that question?
At this time, I'll call on the county attorney, Craig Garrett, if he will come forward.
Chairman, I'll give the best answer that I have, and that's just what I have understood from the folks at the partnership, is that the state had put this legislation on the books, and several communities had availed themselves of the tax benefits in it, and they brought it to the partnership's attention, that wanting to know back in February why we had not sought to qualify for this, and I think no one here had noticed the legislation. And once they explained it to us and explained that the April 15, 2014 was the deadline, and that if approved, you'll be approved for a period of 3 years, and then upon the expiration of the 3 years, the county can continue it. I think the partnership thought it was of great benefit to the community to get these tax credits that come from the state. It's something that was on the books that had not been noticed. It was brought to our attention by the state, and apparently, the chamber thought it was a good idea, and so that's why it came like it did. The state actually made us aware of it. It hadn't been on the books terribly long, but that's my understanding as to why it was put on the agenda as it was. The deadline is April 15th. Didn't have time to wait for the 15th, the regular meeting of the commission, and I think the call has been put out. But that's the circumstance. So, you have any other questions about that I might answer?
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We'll go ahead and push your button, sir. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There has been no debate. Mr. Commissioner Folks only asked a question. Continue.
Okay. I guess I drew two key things from that answer. The first is that the chamber decided this was a good idea. The citizens didn't decide this was a good idea. The chamber did. And I thought that we were a government of the citizens, not of the chamber. The other thing I drew from that answer is that we knew back in February, but not a word was spoken to a commissioner until last week. That smells of somebody trying to ram something through. And I'm offended by that, because I think the citizens deserve an input to something as important as this. Now, let me tell you why. I guess I have one more question on my list. The plan mentions 3 businesses are planning to expand their service and/or locate in the Adventure Tourism District. 3. And these businesses have to invest $500,000. These aren't mom-and-pop businesses. Who are they? That's my question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Folks, in the executive summary and in the detail of the 29 pages in our packet, it spells that out.
I don't believe it does. It lists some businesses in the back, but it never says those are the 3 businesses. It lists a whole bunch of businesses, but it never says who the 3 businesses are. Who are they? Yeah.
Mr. Garrett, if you'd like to come forward, sir. If you'll come to the microphone, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a statute that requires a substantial investment of money and a creation of a certain number of jobs before these tax credits are available. And I think in our county, as a Tier 1 county, it takes $500,000 investment and up to 25 employees as defined by the Department of Revenue. And what needs to be understood about that is that that's not going to, mom and pops aren't going to be able to do that. But if it generates more tourism and more people coming into the county, they're going to go to all the businesses, presumably, or a lot of the businesses, and they're going to benefit by the folks coming to ours. The three that I understand that are significantly planning expansion are Blackberry, Dancing Bear, who suffered a major fire up there and lost and will be rebuilding, and then one of the wineries. This is not a benefit that the county is giving to businesses. This is something that the state is giving to businesses that qualify, and you have to meet that threshold. And so it's not something that is going to be a tax benefit against a franchise and excise tax. A lot of small businesses aren't even corporations that pay a franchise and excise tax. But businesses that do and qualify will get a credit. And if it encourages tourism, the idea behind the state doing it is by promoting and creating tourism, bringing more people to the area, more people to spend money, that the smaller businesses will benefit as well from the increased revenue and the folks that are here. But as I understand, those are the three businesses that currently have plans to spend that kind of money and might possibly create the jobs. If they don't create the jobs, they don't get the tax break. And that's basically what this is about. This is a way to encourage businesses to hire more people, create more jobs, help the community, and if you'll do that, the state's willing to give you a break. It's not coming out of Blount County's pocket. It's coming out of the state as a credit against franchise and excise taxes that these businesses will be paying.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Okay, so what I draw from that answer is that Blackberry, who's been expanding rather steadily and probably would whether this exists or not, and Dancing Bear, who has to rebuild their business and probably would whether this incentive existed or not, and an unnamed winery are driving this rush to pass this. Now let's look at some of the, and by the way, for those in the audience who don't know, they have to invest $500,000 and they get $4,500 per employee per year tax credits. Those tax credits come from something else. The state law governing this adventure tourism district permits a very wide range of activities. Our resolution mentions restaurants and nice, comfortable things like that. But an adventure tourism district, if you go read the state law, includes activities ranging from restaurants to shooting ranges to dirt bike trails, ATV trails, four-wheel drive vehicle trails. And the question that immediately comes to mind is, how does this affect zoning? This adventure tourism district covers nearly all of Townsend and Walland, including lots of residential areas. And to me, that's a concern. If we're encouraging these kinds of activities in an adventure tourism district, which includes residential areas, I don't see how that's good. I have trouble understanding that. So I'd like to ask Mr. Lamb, with the chairman's permission, what effect this adventure tourism zone district has on zoning.
Mr. Lamb, if you'll come forward, sir.
Well, first off, the legislation, the state statutes that govern the action that you're taking today is not zoning. It's under a completely different statute. The statutes for zoning is under Chapter 13. This is under Chapter 11. So this is not zoning. Now, what effect it would have on zoning, quite frankly, I don't think it has any immediate effect. The purpose of the legislation and your action is to provide some incentives. It doesn't require that you accept all types of uses. It still puts the list of uses that you will allow under zoning in your hands.
Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, let me tell you where my concern comes from here. I think there's a backdoor influence on zoning, and a very strong one. And my conclusion derives from an article that I read on a meeting in Johnson County that they had on their adventure tourism zones. And they managed to invite a fellow from the State Department of Economic and Community Development who could speak authoritatively in answer to their questions. And the fellow's name was Matt Garland. And in response to a question asked by one of their members, he told them, and I'm quoting, "If an adventure tourism district were to be created over vacant space," i.e. somebody's farm included, and we have that, "then the county could only allow qualifying adventure tourism businesses to locate there, or risk forfeiting all tax incentives, or risk forfeiting the tax incentives altogether." Whoa. So yeah, they don't have a direct influence on zoning, but if someone wants to build a four-wheeler trail on their farm out there, and it's not in keeping with the zoning, yeah, we can zone it out, but then we're going to give up all the tax incentives. That sounds to me like a pretty big club from the state. And that came from a fellow who's on the State Department of Economic and Community Development. Now, until we get questions like that answered, this whole thing should wait till next year. That deadline's not a hard deadline. It is an annual deadline. We can do this just as easy next year and be a lot smarter about what we're doing. Thank you.
Just thinking about this and having conversations with Mr. Wright, and all of us were friends with Mr. Wright, and he did feel strongly about this, and he had talked to several citizens in his district, and he'd researched this pretty thorough, and talked to Mr. Gamble too. That is his district, and there just no mistake about it. Gordon Wright was for this 199%, and he had talked to his citizens up in Townsend, and in my mind, Gordon Wright had Blount County's interest 199%, and that's all I want to say.
Thank you, sir. My friend Gordon was for this. Like Mr. Harrison said, he'd had talked to some businesses up there, and they were all for it. And if Gordon Wright was for it, I was for it. So I'm behind it. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Like, one of the questions is, well, first of all, there's many, many questions that should be reviewed about this. I think this is very quick to just make a major decision like this. Probably Mr. Lamb can answer this. Is this subject to the Planning Commission review? And then will it be, if someone applies for this, and then will it come to the commission for approval?
Mission Merle, with your indulgence, I think Mr. Garrett
Sure.
could offer some information on that, and if he can't, then I'll defer this to the planner.
This resolution, this legislation does not impact zoning or planning. It does not require anybody to come to the planning or to zoning, and in fact, it doesn't authorize or prohibit land use. That's still under a separate arena. That's under our planning and our zoning regs. This doesn't impact that. That doesn't require it. Basically, what it says is that this district, they are going to promote adventure tourism, but the key to getting any benefits is not that whether somebody goes and opens a whitewater rafting or a spelunking cave dive. It is whether they, and let me say this, that if you create the district that promotes the tourism, then any of the businesses such as lodges, restaurants, any of them that are big enough can benefit under these tax credits. But this is a revenue and a tax bill and not a zoning or a planning, and it doesn't impede that, and it doesn't change our zoning regulations. If somebody wants to do something up in that area, they still have to go through the planning and comply with our zoning regs, and you know, if it just doesn't impact it. So that's still under Mr. Lamb's jurisdiction and our zoning regulation that this commission has passed. This doesn't change that in any way.
Commissioner Merle, is that a satisfactory answer? You have a
Yeah, well,
follow-up?
I have one more, just kind of adding to what Mr. Foltz said.
Ask a question.
Would it impair anyone from building a smaller business?
No, it doesn't impair anything. All it does is,
In that region, I mean...
One person at a time. Go
No,
ahead,
no,
ask
Well, I was just kind of qualifying with my question. In other words, if someone decided they wanted to build a smaller business, would it jeopardize that area?
No, it does not prohibit any kind of, or allow or prohibit anything. And all it is, if you do it, you know, like the state has suggested, and you're big enough, you're going to get a tax credit from the state. That's all it does. It doesn't say you know, if you're not big enough, and if you're not going to put $500,000, or if you're not going to employ enough people, you can't build. I mean, people that want to start a business in Townsend still have to come and meet our zoning regs and our requirements under our planning. And this doesn't change that or say that you can't do something or can do something. It just says that if you have this district and businesses, you know, spend enough money and employ enough people, the state's going to give them a break with their taxes.
Oh, and just adding to that same question while you're up there.
Okay.
Initially, they have to put $500,000 in investment.
Right.
And employ 25 new people.
25. That's the way I read it.
New people.
But that's within the discretion of the commissioner of the Department of Economic Development. I mean, the state can, I think they can maybe, you know, look at that, and they have to determine it, but it defines it in there as 25 new employees that work at least 37 and a half hours per week. It has some guidelines about the employment.
Okay, does it say...
Please, just state the question. Go ahead.
Does it say how long they have to be employed? For the
I think
full
12 months.
3 years?
No, I think 12 months.
Just 12 months?
Yeah. I haven't looked at all the department regs, I mean, the revenue, but I do remember reading that, because under the definition of qualified employee, it was 37 and a half hours per week and have to work for at least 12 months. It doesn't help seasonal part-time employees, but long-term, at least a year. They kind of consider that permanent to get the break, get the tax break.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
And I just have one more comment. I know someone who lives in Townsend, and I asked her because I thought, well, she lives there. She's going to have a really strong opinion about having four-wheel drives running around trails and things like that. She said, no, that doesn't bother me at all. She said, what bothers me is when bus loads of tubers come in, and I can't take my child down the river because I don't own property on the water, and we have no way of accessing that without knowing someone who owns the river just for fun. And she said, this is supposed to be the peaceful side. And she said, I really don't want busloads of people coming in tubing, and now you have kayaking. I mean, she didn't read all of this, but in my mind, I thought it was going to be the loud noise of four-wheelers running, or having horses and things like that. But it was actually busloads of people coming through down there. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read the proposal online, the 29 pages, and looked at all the possible businesses, and I know they left quite a few off the list, but it just mentioned possible. And to be honest with you, I'd be pressed to think that most of those businesses would invest $500,000 or employ 25 people. I mean, I'm trying to envision an ATV operation employing 25 people. I don't see that. And I have some questions also, and possibly a suggestion.
State the question, sir.
First question just came up to me tonight, and I didn't read that anywhere in the literature I've read. Is it an annual deadline? Can anybody answer that?
Mr. Garrett, do you know the answer to the question?
The statute does not say that, and I have not talked to the folks at the state, but all I have seen is their pamphlet or their advisory where it says April 15th, 2014 is the deadline for a 3-year period. I do not know if it's something that you can do every year. If you don't do it now, you have to wait 3 more years. But I just don't know that.
That's what I read, and that was my understanding when I read it. But I wondered if we can get clarification on it. To me, that pops a question in my mind. The other things, the other types of businesses that might be considered that aren't mentioned, I'd like a clearer definition what an adventure tourism business is. Now, I just read online today that it looks like nationwide marijuana is going to be legalized. Is that considered an adventure tourism business? I don't know. I don't know how. It's according to the people that want to legalize it, it's recreational. So I don't want any marijuana
Would
sales
you do it
up
outdoors? Here's the definition.
I'm just curious.
The definition of adventure tourism means outdoor recreational opportunities such as, and then it lists equine, motorized, whitewater, rafting, kayaking, and hang gliding, et cetera, canoeing. So outdoor recreational opportunities such as those. I don't think marijuana growing or smoking would be included in that, but there might. But I will say there might be other outdoor recreational such as these that are described that might be included. But I do agree with you that those types of businesses generally wouldn't be the kind that would be investing $500,000 and employing 25 people. But the hotels, the restaurants could possibly do that.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
I don't think marijuana would.
I have another question for Mr. Garrett, if I could. What I'm concerned about is if we create this tourism zone, which I'm kind of ambiguous. I think it might be a good idea to entice some businesses here, but if we create that zone, and there's one that comes before the Planning Commission, I mean, it has to come before the Planning Commission before it can do anything, my understanding. I mean, just like any other business, they have to submit a plan, a site plan, and everything. It's going to go through the same steps as any business that's doing it right now.
Right.
Okay, it's got to go through. If it comes through the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission turns it down, what legal ramifications do they have against the county?
I don't think they have any.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Are we subjecting ourselves to a possible lawsuit if we turn that business down?
Well, not based on this, I don't think.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
you know, you know, if it's, I think they review that on the basis of arbitrary and capricious and that kind of thing, but
I have one more comment, Mr. Chairman.
You have the floor, sir.
Is it possible to create an ad hoc committee to study this? Some of the questions that haven't been answered. Is there an annual deadline? Is it possible to create an ad hoc committee to study, and then possibly pass it next year? I'm just throwing that out as a possible choice in studying this.
Are you making a motion?
I'm just asking, is it possible?
In my opinion, a number of things are possible, but from the chair, quiet, sir. If you're bringing a motion to the floor, the chair will entertain.
You're asking me to make a motion, I assume.
No, sir. Chair says it will entertain a motion from any member.
My last comment is I'd like to have some questions answered that are unclear in my mind right now. That's all.
Commissioner Lambert, you're recognized for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're becoming very redundant here, and I call for the question.
Motion's been made for the previous question. Is there a second? Commissioner Helton seconds. Vote yes to move the previous question to end discussion. Vote no, not to end discussion. Please vote. Just a moment. Just a moment. I think they need to set the board. Pending motion is called for the previous question, been duly seconded. Vote yes to end debate. Vote no, not to end debate.
Fifteen yeses.
15 yes, 1 no, 4 noes. Motion to move previous question carries. The pending motion on the floor is to adopt Resolution 1404A-001. Vote yes to adopt the resolution. Vote no, not to adopt.
Yeah, 15 yeses and 4 noes.
15 yes, 4 no. The motion is adopted. The resolution is adopted. There's no other business that can be brought before this commission. The meeting is adjourned.